Well, here we are. We're talking today with Adam Grubb, who we just as we're recording today, we had your roast last night, so we learned a lot about you. But we're here to talk about you a little bit. So tell us something that we don't know. Tell us something that makes you tick that you haven't shared with the HBA membership.
Gosh, actually, something that is sort of maybe an interesting story that most people don't know or sort of don't recall. About 2005, about 11 years ago, I went to Africa in the summer with my family, and I got bit by a tsetse fly, and I got what is called African sleep sickness.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm in London, on our flight back, we were at Stonehenge, and I just started getting like teeth chattering chills, and I'm like, man, something doesn't feel right. And I had about 104-degree temp. And I fell asleep that night, and my brothers woke me up, and I'm like in convulsions. So we're like, man, something's really weird. What's going on? I kind of had this bug bite in my arm, and so we get back to the United States. We go to the ER, and really simply, I got found out that I had African sleep sickness. The medication that they give you for that is not FDA approved. It's from like 1918. It's from Germany.
Wow.
I got to sign this like release waiver saying that we're going to try to kill you, and we're going to hope that you live and the bug dies. And I'm like, all right, what's plan B? She's like, well, you die in about 5 days. I'm like, plan A sounds good. Let's give it.
Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I'll try this drug. And so it did. It put me in a coma for a couple of days. I went in intensive care for about a week, and I was in the hospital for roughly 28 days. And when I got out, the reality is that out of 31 people to have ever had African sleep sickness, I'm only the 5th to live.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's my interesting Adam story, which 10 years ago, I feel like people that knew me at the time would have known that story. But that's and they don't have like tsetse fly or African sleep sickness marches or fundraisers, so there's no like
no awareness.
Yeah, there's no awareness. So it's a lonely deal. But that's I got asked that the other day. What's the most interesting thing about you? And I survived African sleep sickness.
Wow. I think it's kind of interesting too that only 31 people have ever gotten bit or gotten the sickness that at least that.
Well, most people would stay there, but I was sort of in this window. So what happens is you get bit by the bug, it gets into your central nervous system, it puts you in a coma, and then it kills you in about 10 days. Mm. That's why they call it African sleep sickness, is because, the people there are, they're in a coma. I mean, and this is in, this is in like the tribal regions of Africa, right? Like these feed off carcasses and then they bite you. And, but the long and the short of it, it knocks you in a coma and it kills you in about 10 days. I just happened to sort of be in this window that from the day I got bit, I actually got back
traveling
into the United States. The irony of it is the woman number 30 actually called me and reached out to me.
Wow.
She was from Omaha. She was in Africa like 2 months before I was, in similar region, and same deal. Like got sick, got home, didn't know what was going on, went to the hospital. And it was funny too, because like I was like the tsetse fly guy at the hospital. So nurses and docs would come in and like, oh, are you the guy? And so it was kind of funny.
So those are the safari pictures from last night. And then what hospital? Where were you at? What city were you in the hospital?
I was in Mercy, downtown.
Oh, in Des Moines. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were home.
I was
That
home.
Good.
Yeah. But it was one where, I'm sort of in and out of consciousness, and I have friends that don't live in Des Moines that are coming in to say goodbye, and the priest gave me my last rites and the whole deal.
Wow.
Yeah. I always tell people, you never want to, like, it's really nice to know, like, how much everyone loves you and, like, who does and who doesn't. You never really want to be in the situation to have to know that. So, in a way, it was a blessing that I sort of had that gift opportunity. And this is at a time, too, where I'm, like, 26 years old, so I felt like I was pretty invincible.
Yeah.
So it was, in the end, it was probably one of the neatest gifts I've been given in a weird way.
At that point, Big Daddy was the highlight of your career, right? Then
Big
you
Daddy.
had no idea.
Big Daddy Woo. Yeah, you had to bring that up. I Do you know how I became Big Daddy Woo Woo?
I don't know.
This is really bad, maybe, I don't know, but there was a gentleman on the street. I was at a bachelor party downtown Chicago on Clark Street, down in Wrigleyville. And it was, typical, like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We just watched the Iowa game, so imagine how we were feeling. And we come out, and they're like, give him a name. And the guy goes, oh, shit, that's easy. That's Big Daddy Woo Woo. They were paying this guy to give us all nicknames.
Okay.
And so mine was Big Daddy Woo Woo. So we go to the next bar, and then we're walking, and this is at the time that Obama got elected. So it was in the November. So the election was on like Tuesday, and then we were there like the following Saturday. So this is pretty fresh.
Okay.
And I walk into the shop, and there's all these T-shirts that can get made, right? And so they have all the different sort of logo designs that you can put on a T-shirt. And there's one of Barack Obama, and he's kind of got like a sort of smirky grin. And the sort of inside joke was, 7 guys out at the bar drinking beer all night, and guys are farting, and you're like, oh man, who was that? So I got this Obama shirt, and on the back I put "Who Farted," and then I got Big Daddy Woo Woo put on my hat. And then I walk into the bar, and you would have thought that we practiced this, but I walk in, and they see the shirt, they see the hat, everybody laughs, and I just yell out, "Big Daddy!" In unison, the whole bar goes, "Woo woo!" So that became a thing for quite some time. As I'd say Big Daddy, and then everybody
We'll do the woo woo.
Yeah. And it's been a long time since I've been Big Daddy Woo Woo.
Yeah. So you shared nice things, glowing things about your wife last. Tell us about Christina. Where did you guys meet? How did you get together?
No one's gonna believe this, but I met her at a birthday party, probably 13, 14 years ago, and then I was out to dinner with my family at an event. And then I went to drink on Thursday, because that's what you do. You go to the Original Film Bar for birthday Thursdays. And I walk in, and she points right at me, and she goes, you're taking me on a date tomorrow night. And I was like, okay. Get her number, and I literally walk out of the bar and leave. So that's how it went down.
Wow.
So we went on a date the next night at Dish, and it was kind of a few month long sort of courtship. And then I ran into her again, and she's like, hey, I owe you dinner. So I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. So we went on a date up to Rinaldo's on 3rd up in Ankeny. And the rest was history. We dated for probably like 6-7 years, and then we've been married now, coming up on 6. 3 little kids later, and yeah, she's great. And I said this last night, but it's worth noting, I mean, so much of this industry and being a part of the HBA and just the demand and the hours and having 3 little kids, I mean, she's above and beyond supportive. And really, I mean, there was never a time where it's like, hey, I need to go to this event. And she was like, you can't do that. And it wasn't like, hey, can I do this? Yeah, you can. And then it's like,
you owe me.
Right. There was none of that keeping score. It was just, hey, this is what we signed up for. But I also am aware enough to say, okay, you've been amazing the last couple of weeks. I've had a lot of stuff, why don't you take the next couple nights? I'll watch the kids, and you go do, so there's a give and take. Good.
This is usually not about business, but I always give everybody a chance to talk about something business-wise. What have you learned either from the podcast or dealing with Des Moines zoning and talking about authenticity and vulnerability? I mean, what would be your one thing that you'd like to share with our members that are watching?
Well, I always say one of my favorite quotes, a gal, Katrina Lake, that started Stitch Fix. She's the youngest woman to take a company public, and her quote is, the new currency in leadership is vulnerability and authenticity. And it's not just our business or industry, but there's a lot of business and industry where, sort of self-interest and ego can really drive, and it's sort of a dictatorship, and, you're going to do what I tell you because I'm the boss. And I think that was sort of a generational thing too, not just, in terms of an industry, but it seems as though that type of leadership, less and less people are wanting to follow or needing to follow because there's more options. And so now that there's more options of leadership to be, a part of sort of that ecosystem or a part of that company, people have options. the vulnerability and the authenticity becomes sort of the new value, I think, in that currency. And by that, I mean, I think it's just taking your business and going to your team every day and saying, hey, what do you need from me to be successful? What do you need from me today to be able to help you do your job better? Rather than sort of this, what have you done for me lately?
Right.
And then just doing that authentically, just being you, being real, not trying to be something that you think others are going to like or follow, or doing things because you're worried about what your competitors or others are going to think. It's just about, really doubling down on who you are and creating an ecosystem that empowers other people to do the same thing. And I think that's what really gets people bought in and thriving.
I know it really, I mentioned this last night, but the city of Des Moines just wasn't prepared for that. They didn't know how to react because they didn't expect that. They thought we were going to be the bully back to their bullying, and it just didn't hit. I think it hit them like a left hook out of the black, or out of the blue. So.
Well, I think it's with that. I think it's just refreshing for anybody.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
I think that approach is refreshing. That's why that currency carries so much value. But at the same time, it takes trust. It takes time to earn that trust in that approach. And I think that's the other part, is most people aren't patient enough to stay committed to it, to sort of earn that. They want to I want to command that. I'm the leader. It's my company. I just hired you.
This is what we're going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it requires a significant amount of patience on the leader's part and on another person's part. And the city of Des Moines may be a really good example of just, I think for good reason, there's reservation on that trust, and that's real and that's authentic. But time wins that out. There's no, and that's really what separates on the authenticities. Time is a bitch, right? And I think the economy and this industry, time definitely puts the pressure. You may be doing something that works, and it may work for 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, but eventually those cracks are going to get exposed, and you're going to have to deal with that. Like I alluded to last night, my dad carried us through 5 recessions, but I think it was the vulnerability and the authenticity that he learned over that period of time, knowingly or unknowingly, is what prepared him to be able to go through the Great Recession, and in a way that was very vulnerable and very authentic. And really, I mean it. I mean, he just never flinched, never wavered. I don't know how else to describe it, but he also didn't get too high in the highs. So then when the lows came,
He did right through it.
Yeah, no question. And I think that's it too. It's easy to overvalue. You say, oh, I don't care what people think about me, but yet you're the first person in line to get a compliment.
Yeah.
So you overvalue the positive, and then you're just really sort of stuck when you have to deal with the negative, because you've sort of undervalued that for so long. It's just not authentic.
Interesting. So if you want to know more about Adam, I really appreciated getting to meet him over the last year and really get to know him over the last few years. Reach out to him. I'm sure he would love to have coffee. I'm sure he would love for you to watch his podcast, because he describes and talks a lot about these coaching techniques and these tips. But reach out and get to know him. Thanks. We'll see you soon.